Hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome back to another awesome episode of Gothically Yours, Professor M. I'm Professor M. In this very special video, we'll be talking about the world of vampirism and how it seeped ever so lusciously into the Goth community. And this video comes on special request from Anton the Vampire, who asked about vampire fashion. But then I thought, why not culminate it into a much more broader and deeper lecture? So today, without further ado, I think that this very special episode, you can really sink your teeth into. Join us. I thought you'd like that opening. I got my beads on today. It's very warm here. Decided to get in my best vampire gear today for you. Well, Cedric and I are going to talk a little bit about vampires and how vampirism slipped into the Gothic community and what vampirism is all about. But before I begin my lecture, I'm going to take you on a fantastic journey backwards in time to the origins of vampires, before it all began and where it all started and how it slipped into the Gothic community. Begin off the journey of vampirism like this. In the time when mankind was much younger and the world was a much more mysterious place, not caught up in the world of science and technology, there was the world of mythology, legend, and lore. And because of that, and the misunderstanding of certain elements within our world, like disease, famine, plague, and other brutal things that affected humanity, humans came up with the idea that there were reasons beyond their understanding, that there were monsters or creatures or other entities out there that were affecting the world, and that's why these things were happening. And thus began the legend of the vampire. The origin of vampires came from multiple areas of medieval Europe, parts of Poland, Bulgaria, Croatia, Austria, Czechoslovakia, lower regions of what we consider now Transylvania. These areas all had different creatures. Some of them were monsters that were just heads, some of them were flying dragons, some of them were other entities, but they all had one thing in common. They all drank blood. And they came in the night and they killed and removed people from their homes. And this was the answer that the early people had for things like the plague, diseases, certain inflictions that were happening where people were dying very young without any answers because no one understood about bacteria and germs, spores in hay that the farmers actually would have when taking the wet hay out of the fields and leaving it to dry and then turning it over. All of these diseases and things that we know about today were answered with these mythological monsters. And it took almost 500 years of culmination of these legends to fuse ever so slowly into the world of vampirism that we know today. In the 1700s, we have the first contact of the identity that there weren't monsters anymore, but they were human beings, transformed, becoming more monster-like. Other human beings that sought out and lived their life eternally by the drinking of blood. Now, if you go to the Victorian age, is when it really rises, where we actually have a figure, a face, a dress code, a look, a style, and even a name to what a vampire is. Do your homework on that one. Along comes Bram Stoker, who wrote a magnificent book about Dracula, which is based primarily on some fact and some fiction, fusing them together. Now, if you know the history of Vlad the Impaler, who actually existed, you will discover that one of the most bloodiest and deadliest of all rulers had a very significant place in the world of vampirism. As the culmination of this character erupted, later on it would be refined. One of the greatest vampire writers of our time, Anne Rice, had produced a vampire of the modern era, and that is when it slips into the Goth community. About the 1990s, the age of the vampire had arrived. But the age of the vampire had arrived thanks to Anne Rice bringing it into fashion. A couple of mythologies that you need to know about with vampires. Can vampires go out in the sun? Well, according to Anne Rice's book, no, they can't. It would be burnt to a crisp. But according to legend, vampires can go out in the sun. They just get weak. And this is where Twilight enters into. Now, I've never watched the Twilight series. I thought it was actually kind of mwah. But they can go out into the sunlight and experience sun, but it has a weakening power. So what kills vampires? What affects them? Well, according to legends, as we know, crucifixes, or looking at the image of Christ themselves, will make them turn away. The next thing is the purity of silver, as in silver bullets being shot through them, stakes being driven through their heart, the power of garlic, and the power of holy water. And, of course, we do know that you cannot have a vampire look into a mirror. I love how this cave-like wax is forming over here behind me. Another interesting fact that I had discovered about vampire and vampire killing materials is that no two real Victorian vampire killing kits have ever been the same. The largest collection of vampire killing kits is now in the hands of Ripley's Believe It or Not Entertainment out of Sarasota, Florida. They have the largest collection of vampire hunting kits in the world. And what they discovered is, by looking at all of them, they are all custom designed, individually and bestokely created for their customers. No two have ever been alike. So if you want to build one, they'll be original in your sight. Some of them had rosary beads, some of them had crushed garlic, all of them had crucifixes, candles, holy waters, Bibles, stakes, and some of them even had guns with silver bullets in them. Now, none of them have ever been used that we know of, but I want to share with you a little bit more about vampires and asking the question, are they real and do they exist? Well, for those of you who do know that I am from central New England, born and raised in Massachusetts, I'm going to spin you a fantastic tale, a fantastic tale onto the world of vampirism as I watch this wax drip ever so wonderfully into the past. I might be replacing the candles soon. For those of you who know that I'm from central New England, you will have to discover that vampire and vampire hysteria was truly a part of the fabric of the United States during the 1800s, during the Victorian era. Now, I'm going to share with you a little bit about one particular place in Rhode Island. It's called Exeter. Exeter, Rhode Island, and a young girl by the name of Mercy Brown. Now, Mercy Brown was a young girl who died in the year 1892, and she is buried in a cemetery. And believe it or not, her body was actually exhumed from the ground because she was believed to have been inflicted by an actual vampire, and the vampire hysteria in Rhode Island took off so much that they wanted to find out if she was truly still in the ground. Exeter, Rhode Island, is where the vampire hysteria took off, and also where I am from in Massachusetts, we had the witch hysteria of Salem in the 1600s. Now, if you go to the interweb, you can look up Mercy's stone online. You can actually see Mercy Brown and that many Goths, brothers and sisters, bring tokens and offerings and things of admiration to her grave, which the graveyard people have to constantly clean up and take away. I hope to someday visit Mercy myself. Vampirism and vampire fashion and how it slipped into the Gothic community is something that I'm going to need to talk about in part 2 of my video, which I'll be going into another entity for. Now, as my candles slowly fade and burn down, it shows the passage of time. Therefore, let's now slip into part 2, a little bit about vampire fashion and how to create it. So in this part of my video, I want to talk a little bit about vampire fashion because that was the question that came up. Essentially, there's 2 very important colors that you should have in your wardrobe. The first one is blood red, or any deep, dark red that is similar to blood, and the essential black that we wear. Now, as a goth, I usually paint my nails, I have my beads on, and have this fantastic brooch now that I'm wearing. Brooches on males create a very Bela Lugosi look that has a simulation to a vampire look. If you have your hair and you pull your hair back and you have a widow's peak, that is a very, very vampire-esque element to add to your wardrobe. In the vampire world is this beautiful vest. Of course, I've got this one in damask. It is from the Historical Recreations collection of Historical Emporium. It's from the Victorian age. It does have the back on it over here, which the 2 pieces can come together if you are a heavier person or a lighter person. Yes, women can wear these quite beautifully. It is satin lined and relatively affordable. This was about 77 American dollars. Well worth it because you can wear this anywhere on any occasion to work, as I have on several different times. And all my students go, "My goodness, professor, are you dressed to kill?" No pun intended. Anyways, but the look is very vampire-esque. Now, another element about vampirism and Gothic fashion you should know about is owning 1, 2, or 3 of these bad boys. They are velveteen cloaks. Now, I have worn several of these in my videos, and I'm going to show you how they look. You can get them online. They usually come with a strap on the side. This is very effective if you're going out to a club. Look, I'm not changing even my clothing. I'm just adding this tiny cloak to my wardrobe, and instantly the vampirism takes over. I'm trying to make a little bow here. There, look at that. Isn't that awesome? Just what you need. Beautiful. Look, with the hat back on. Why not? That's what professors wear. Yeah, the glasses. This is just essential learning how to build a wardrobe to create a certain look. So if you're going out for the vampire look at the club, you found it. And now another essential building material for vampirism is this. And I'm going to have to change into this. I know everyone wants to see me strip. But this is a Ren shirt. This is a Renaissance shirt. And I purchased this back in the 90s. So this is vintage. These were handmade, hand-sewed. And I got them at a Renaissance fair. I bought two of them, one in black and one in white. Now the black one is back in the United States. However, I have this one with these beautiful large sleeves, which I will slip into and show you how vampirism can be very easily contained within one of these shirts. Hold on. It was well worth the wait, wasn't it? Look at that. It fits beautifully. Essentials in vampirism is all about the look and the feel and your mindset. Now you have to remember that vampires are solemn creatures and they have a very particular style of talk, walk, look, and entity. And all you have to do is adjust your mind to have that vampirism. So in the third part of my video, I wanted to answer the question, do vampires really exist? Well, that depends on whom you talk to and what type of scientific research you have in your pocket. I had discovered over many years there were actual individuals who were put in psychological wards who have confessed that they had a longing to drink blood and their own blood. Go on to the interweb, you'll discover all kinds of crazy and bizarre stories. But in actuality, well, no, vampires do not exist. They are a culmination of mythology. However, within the Goth community, we have ignited a wonderful standing of something that belongs. As the fusion from the 1990s, the vampire fashion slipped into our culture, creating a new branch and therefore culminating a whole entire new area of movies, literature, and pseudosciences. Now, for myself, I'd like to believe that vampires are out there. Very special about that. That particular day, I ended up at the Salem Witch Museum, in which that I had met the great, fifth great granddaughter. Was it fifth or the sixth? I think it was the sixth, so I'll add an extra grade in there. Great granddaughter of the man who was tried as a witch during the Salem witch trials. He was crushed to death as he laid down on the ground, and they put boards on his chest. Other individuals put stones, heavy, large boulder-like stones on the boards, and as they asked him the question, "Are you a witch?" he replied, "No, more weight." And they kept putting more and more and more weight until his rib cage crushed. Now, meeting the actual descendant of this person sparks on the originality that, well, some things may exist. They are inevitably invisible but perceptible. And as I'm ending out my wonderful rant today on the world of vampirism, I hope that you learned something very special. And as always, signing off, gothically yours, Professor M.